Welcome to the channel, lovelies. Please like and subscribe, and do not go anywhere, because this story is going to hit every nerve in the best possible way. The knock came at 7:14 in the morning. 3 beats. Firm. The kind of knock that doesn't consider the possibility of being ignored. Deja Osei stood in her kitchen with a mug of coffee, still warm, and she knew. Not because she was expecting Shin Hyun-woo. She hadn't let herself expect anything from him in 8 months. She knew because of the quality of the knock, the weight of it. Some part of her body recognized the sound before her mind caught up, and her stomach did something she didn't give it permission to do. She considered not opening the door, but she opened it anyway. He looked like he hadn't slept. His eyes went straight to her face the way they always did, like they were searching for something she owed him. Behind him, Atlanta's morning was pale and quiet. He looked like he didn't belong in it. He looked like he belonged nowhere soft. 3 days, he said firmly. He didn't start with hello, not good morning. Just that. An accusation dressed as a number. Good morning to you too, Deja said so calmly. He stepped forward. She didn't step back, which seemed to irritate him. He came inside the way he always moved through spaces, like he owned them. And her apartment, despite everything, despite the 8 months and the new city and the plants she kept alive and the promotion certificate framed by the window, was no exception. She watched him take in the room, the evidence of a life that had not fallen apart without him. And then he stopped moving. His eyes had found the drying rack near the kitchen. A large grey shirt, obviously a man's, obviously not his. The silence that followed had weight to it. She watched the moment register on his face, something controlled and cold moving just beneath the surface. "Whose is that?" he asked, pointing to the shirt. "Good morning once again, Hyun-woo." "Deja." "That's my name, yes." "Whose shirt is that?" It wasn't a question. It was never a question with him. She crossed her arms and leaned against the counter and looked at him with the particular steadiness she had been practicing for 8 months, the kind that doesn't invite escalation. "That," she said, "is none of your business." What came next, she did not expect. He accused her, flat out. Standing in her kitchen on a Tuesday morning, Shin Hyun-woo looked at her like a man who had decided that logic was optional today and delivered a cheating accusation with the full conviction of someone who had apparently forgotten the entire last year of their lives. She let him finish. She was always better at letting people finish than he gave her credit for. "Hyun-woo." Her voice was quiet, the kind of quiet that is somehow louder than volume. "We are not together. We have not been together for a year. Whatever I do, whoever owns whatever clothing item is in my home, that is not cheating. You don't have that word available to you anymore. You gave it up." Something moved across his face, not an apology, something more complicated. The expression of a man who knows he is wrong and has decided to be wrong loudly rather than correct himself quietly. "That doesn't mean..." "It means exactly what I said." And that was the moment she understood why he was really here. Not about the shirt. He was here because somewhere in the past 48 hours, something had shifted, and Shin Hyun-woo did not handle shifts well, but Deja didn't know that yet. What she knew was that this man, this infuriating, composed, unavailable man, had shown up at her door after 8 months of them being apart, and part of her, the part she had been working very hard to quiet, was not entirely sorry he had. She just wasn't going to tell him that. To understand this particular moment, we have to go back. Back to 1 year ago, on a rooftop, in a city they were both just passing through. Back when Shin Hyun-woo was just a man with good manners and a dangerous smile and no visible red flags. Back to before she knew that some people's red flags are invisible until you're already inside the fire. They met at a rooftop event. Mutual friend. She was talking to someone else when he arrived, and she didn't notice him until he was suddenly beside her, asking if the person she was talking to was boring her, because she had the look of someone doing math in their head to pass the time. She turned and looked at him and said, "He's lovely, actually." But you're very rude. He smiled at that. She decided immediately he was dangerous, and then talked to him for 2 hours until neither of them could tell you when the other person had left. It was good at first. Most things are. Then it started happening. The first time he was late, she thought nothing of it. Traffic, work, the ordinary friction of life. The second time he called ahead and she appreciated the call. The third time he didn't call, and she sat at a restaurant for 35 minutes before he walked in, looking like a man who had sprinted from somewhere and hadn't quite stopped running. She said it was fine. She meant it that time. By the 8th or 9th time, she said it was fine. She no longer meant it, but she was still saying it, and that was its own kind of problem. He would promise to do better. She believed him the first 4 times. The 5th time, she said, "Okay," instead of "I believe you," and she could see something register on his face. The difference between those 2 words, the distance between them. And still, the next week arrived, and with it, another cancellation, another late arrival, another dinner that started with his apology instead of their conversation. She started asking questions he couldn't answer. Why are you always late? What is it about your work that I'm never allowed to know? Why do I always feel like I'm fitting into the edges of your schedule? He would say, "It's complicated. I'll explain soon. I'm working on it." Soon never came. He was always working on it. The dinner that ended everything was his idea. A reset, he said. Just the 2 of them. He'd be there. She wore something she liked and arrived at 7 p.m. exactly. At 7:20, she ordered water and told herself he was on his way. At 7:45, she ordered bread because she was hungry and her patience was burning through. At 8:05, she paid and put on her coat. At 8:09, as she was standing at the table putting in her second earring, she had taken them off out of habit while she waited. The door opened and he walked in. He saw her standing there, coat on, bag over her shoulder, ready to leave. "You're leaving," he said. "I was leaving," she said. "I've been here over an hour." "I got held up." "You always get held up. Sit down. I'm here now." "You're over an hour late, Hyun-woo. Again, with no call. Again." "I said I'm here. And I'm saying it's not enough just to be here. Being here an hour late doesn't cancel out the hour. That's not how time works. That's not how I work." She looked at him. "Tell me. Actually tell me. Not it's complicated, not I'll explain soon. Tell me right now what is so important that I have sat in restaurants and living rooms and on the edge of my own patience for a year waiting for you to show up. Tell me." The silence stretched. He looked at her and she looked at him and she understood, in that moment, that he wasn't going to tell her. He was going to say he was sorry and he'd do better, and she was going to stand there in her coat deciding whether to sit back down. And she had made that decision enough times. "I'm going home," she said. She walked past him. He didn't follow. She packed 3 days later, not in anger, in the particular quiet of someone who has made a decision and is now executing it. She found her own apartment in 6 days and moved on a Saturday. He was home. He watched her carry boxes to the car and said nothing. When it was done, he stood on the pavement and she sat in the driver's seat, and they looked at each other through the window. She thought, "Stop me. Say something real. Tell me what it is you can't tell me." He put his hands in his pockets instead. She drove away. What she didn't know, what she had never been allowed to know, was that the thing he couldn't tell her was not small. The late nights and the cancelled plans and the phone calls he always took in another room weren't carelessness. They were evidence of a life he ran parallel to the one she could see. A network, an organization, the kind of operation that doesn't surface in daylight. He had been rehearsing versions of how to tell her for almost the entire year they were together. In the car, in the shower, lying awake at 3 a.m, staring at the ceiling while she slept beside him. He kept finding reasons to wait 1 more week. Then there were no more weeks. He threw himself back into work. His second in command, An Jung-soo, the only person on earth allowed to tell him hard truths, even stopped mentioning her name after the first month. It seemed like the right thing to do. 8 months passed, and then there was a gala. The event was for a real estate foundation, the kind of function Hyunwoo attended because his legitimate business interests required a public face, and charity events were useful for conversations that couldn't happen in offices. He was halfway through a conversation he didn't care about when something in his peripheral vision snapped to attention. He turned. There she was, wearing deep green. Her hair was up. She was laughing at something before she even cleared the entrance. Laughing before she was through the door, which meant it was real. Not performance, not social effort, genuine ease. She looked light, like something had been lifted from her, like she had been exhaling for 8 months and it looked good on her. The man beside her had his hand at her elbow. Hyunwoo's conversation stopped. The person he was talking to stopped too, sensing something had changed. Then she saw him. 3 seconds of eye contact across a crowded room. Her expression didn't flood, didn't collapse, didn't give him anything dramatic. She looked at him the way you look at something you've already processed, with recognition and very little heat. Then she turned back to the man beside her, back to her conversation, back to her life. Hyunwoo excused himself, got a drink he didn't finish, and left earlier than planned. By the next morning, Paul Ellison's week had begun to fall apart. A contract withdrawn, a door at an investor meeting, quietly closed before he arrived, a lease renewal, politely declined. Nothing that pointed anywhere, nothing illegal, just the particular efficiency of someone who knows how to apply pressure without leaving prints. And his only offense was accompanying Deja to that gala event. Deja figured it out in 48 hours. Paul called her, confused, trying to map what had happened to his professional life in the span of 1 week. She listened carefully, asked the right questions, hung up and sat with it. She thought about who had seen her at that event. She thought about who had that kind of reach, quiet, precise, untraceable. She thought about Shin Hyun-woo, who she had always known was something, even when she didn't know what, who moved through the world with the confidence of a man who had never needed to raise his voice to be obeyed. And she found out where he was through a contact she shouldn't still have had, his assistant. Walked into the restaurant at noon on a Tuesday, spotted him at a corner table with 3 men in expensive suits having what was clearly a serious conversation. She crossed the room and sat down in the empty chair across from him like she had reserved it. The 3 men looked at her. Hyunwoo looked at her. His expression did something complicated and then immediately controlled. Surprise compressed into that familiar composure she used to spend so much energy trying to get behind. He said something to his associates in Korean. Quiet. Final. They stood, gathered their things, and left without looking at her. She waited until they were gone. You ruined his career, she said. No warm-up, no preamble. Hyunwoo picked up his water glass, set it down. I don't know what you're referring to. Yes, you do. A pause. He didn't confirm it. He didn't deny it either, which was its own kind of confirmation. Stop the pretense, Hyunwoo. He was at the event with you, Hyunwoo said. His voice was calm. It was always calm. That is not a justification. It's an explanation. It's the same thing dressed differently. She leaned forward slightly. You have no right. We ended because you couldn't show up. Not once, not by accident, but consistently, for an entire year. That was your choice. I moved out. You stood on the pavement and put your hands in your pockets and watched me drive away. So whatever claim you think you have, whatever entitles you to reach into someone's life and take it apart because he was standing next to me, he had his hand on you. He is allowed to have his hand on me. The words settled between them. Something in his jaw moved. He looked at her. Deep water, no surface information. And she looked back and did not blink. Stay away from my life, she said. She stood, smoothed her jacket. I am not your concern. I haven't been for 8 months. Whatever you're feeling right now, deal with it. That's not my job anymore. She left, head up, unhurried. He watched her walk out the door, and he said nothing, because there was nothing, not yet, that he had earned the right to say. But here is what Deja did not know as she walked out of that restaurant. She did not know that the moment she disappeared through the door, Jung-soo, his assistant, leaned over from the table 2 seats away, where he had been sitting the whole time, set down his coffee, and looked at Hyunwoo with the expression of a man who has been waiting a long time to say something. She is the only person in the world, Jung-soo said, who has ever walked away from you twice and meant it both times. Hyunwoo didn't answer. That's either the most dangerous thing I've ever seen, Jung-soo said, or it's the most important one. Hyunwoo said nothing, but he was still looking at the door. And that, right there, was the problem. Because Shin Hyunwoo had never once in his life looked at a closed door and thought, I should let it stay closed. He looked at closed doors and he thought about what was on the other side of them. He had spent 8 months convincing himself that her leaving was the right outcome, that she was safer not knowing, that whatever she had built in Atlanta without him was better than what she would have had beside him. He had been very convincing. The problem was she had just walked out of a restaurant, and she had been the most alive person in the room. And Shin Hyunwoo, who ran a criminal network across 2 continents, who had never once been afraid of anything that could actually hurt him, sat at a corner table in Atlanta on a Tuesday afternoon and understood, for the first time, clearly and without the comfort of convenient self-deception, that the only thing he had ever truly been afraid of was exactly what had just happened. Outside the restaurant, Deja walked to her car, sat down, closed the door, and took a breath. And now after the restaurant incident, Hyunwoo couldn't get his mind off Deja. And then, on the 3rd day, he picked up his phone and made 1 call and had her number in 40 seconds flat. She answers the first one because she does not recognize the number. Deja. She hung up immediately. She recognized the voice. He calls again. She declines. He sends a message. She reads it because she physically cannot stop herself from reading it, which annoys her, and then she does not respond, which is the right choice even if it costs her some effort to make it. This goes on for 3 days. 3 full days of him trying and her giving him absolutely nothing to work with. Then on the morning of the 3rd day there is a knock at her door. 3 beats, firm, even. Right back to where our story began. The 7:14 a.m. knock, the grey shirt on the drying rack, all of that already happened, and now we are on the other side of it. After the argument, after she told him flat and clear that he does not get to use the word cheating anymore. He asked one more time. Whose shirt is that, Deja? She looks at him for a moment, and then she does something that probably irritates him more than any argument could. She simply does not answer. She does not flinch, does not explain, does not give him even a syllable to work with. Just looks at him with that steady, unbothered patience and lets the silence sit there between them. We are not together, she says finally. We have not been together for 8 months. So whatever question you just asked me, you need to understand that you do not have the right to ask it. He opens his mouth and she cuts straight through it. I need you to leave. He goes quiet, stands there in her kitchen for a moment that stretches long enough to feel like something. Jaw tight, eyes on her face, all that composure doing the work it always does of keeping whatever is underneath it from surfacing. Then he walks to the door. He stops in the doorway and turns back and looks at her, long, unresolved, something burning quietly behind all that control. Then he leaves. The door closes. She puts her back against it, looks at the drying rack, looks at the shirt. Kwame's shirt. Her cousin. He came over 3 weeks ago to help her put together a bookshelf, which took 4 hours because the instructions were designed by someone with no regard for normal human patience, and he forgot the shirt when he left. She has been meaning to return it. She almost laughs. Almost. Instead, she goes back to her coffee. It is cold now, because of course it is, because nothing about this morning went the way it was supposed to. She pours it down the drain, makes a fresh cup, and stands at her kitchen window, looking at Atlanta waking up below her. She's fine. She tells herself this and mostly means it. The look on his face in the doorway, though. She's going to have to deal with that later. He tries everything next. In the wrong order, with the wrong energy, for the wrong reasons. And every attempt lands exactly the way you would expect when a man who is used to getting what he wants meets a woman who has stopped wanting to give it to him. He calls. She declines. He sends flowers, the expensive kind that arrive in a heavy box from a florist with no address on the website. She gifts them to her building's front desk and tells the woman working there to please enjoy them without breaking her stride. He shows up at the building. She talks to him through the intercom with the patient, measured tone of someone managing a situation rather than engaging with a person. She is never unkind. That is the thing he cannot get any leverage on. If she hated him, that would be simpler. Hate is still a form of contact, but she is clear and steady and calm, and in every exchange leaves him feeling like he has been assessed and found wanting, which is accurate and also maddening. He is not sleeping. He is in meetings, and half of his mind is somewhere across Atlanta. Jung-soo watches all of this for 2 full weeks and says absolutely nothing about it, which is the loudest thing Jung-soo could possibly do. Then one night, they are in the back of a car after a meeting that ran late, City going by outside the windows, and Jung-soo says, "Can I say something?" Hyun-woo responded, "No." Jung-soo says it anyway. He says it carefully, the way of someone who has been holding a speech together for 2 weeks and has decided the window is now or never. He tells Hyun-woo that what he is doing, the calls, the showing up, the flowers, the intercom conversations, is the same thing he did inside the relationship. The kind you do not have to chase someone, the kind you do not have to chase someone into accepting. He tells Hyun-woo that what he did to Paul Ellison was not love. He says it plainly, without blinking. He says it was control wearing love's clothing. A man who does not know what to do with a feeling, using the only tool he has ever been fluent in. And power is not a love language, it is the opposite of one. He tells him that a woman who built a whole life in 8 months, who walked into that restaurant and sat down like she owned the chair, who has not cried in front of him once through any of this, she does not need to be worn down. She needs to see something actually change, not promised, or not performed, changed. The car is very quiet when he finishes. "Are you done?" Hyun-woo says. "Yes," Jung-soo says. A long silence. The city keeps moving outside. "She deserves better than what I gave her," Hyun-woo says. And it comes out differently than anything he usually says. Less shaped, less controlled, like something that surfaced before he could manage it. "Yes," Jung-soo says simply. "So become that." That is the sentence. That is the one that cracks something open. What follows is not quick and it is not cinematic. It is a man sitting with himself honestly, in the unglamorous and uncomfortable way that real change requires, and not looking away from what he finds there. He starts with the organization, a transition he has been circling for 2 years, moving his operations toward legitimate business, slowly and carefully. And then because this kind of shift cannot be rushed without consequences, he loses influence in some rooms. He accepts that. He tells himself, and means it, that he is not doing this for her. He is doing it because something dawned on him in the back of that car, and what came through was a question he has never let himself actually sit with. What has he been building all this time? And toward what? He stops contacting Deja. Completely. For 3 weeks, no calls, no flowers, no showing up, no messages from numbers she does not recognize. Just silence. She probably thinks he has given up. He has not given up. He is doing something harder than chasing her. He is learning the difference between wanting someone and being ready for them. 3 weeks in, on a Thursday evening, he sends one message. 1. No preamble, no flowers incoming. I know pressure disguised as sincerity. I'm not asking for what we had. I'm asking for one dinner. Private restaurant, just a conversation. You have my word, that's all it is. She reads it at 9 p.m., does not respond. Then she reads it again, puts her phone down, waters her plants, washes a dish that did not need washing, stands at her window for longer than necessary. Then it is midnight and she reads it one more time. She does not respond that night. On Saturday morning, she sends back 2 words and a condition. Once, don't make me regret it. He is at the restaurant 30 minutes early. He checks the table twice. He is standing when she walks in. Old habit, the kind that comes from somewhere in him that was raised correctly, even when the rest of him took wrong turns. And when she sees him standing, and something passes through her face in a fraction of a second that does not make it any further than that. Then she sits. He sits. They look at each other across a table that is not a battlefield for the first time in a long time. You look different, she says. I've been doing some work, he says. On what? Myself. She holds that. Then she picks up the menu, even though neither of them is really here about the food. He talks. He tells her everything, the organization, what it actually is, why the calls came at wrong hours and why he stepped out of every room she was in. He tells her about the transition he has started. He watches her face while he talks, and he does not try to shape her reaction. He just lets it arrive, whatever it is, because that is the minimum of what he owes her. And she is still in the way she goes still when she is taking something in completely. Not closed off. The opposite. Then he tells her about the previous year from the inside. Not to rewrite her experience of it. He is careful about that, because her experience was real and accurate from where she stood. He tells her the interior of something she could only ever see the surface of. I was going to tell you, he says. I kept building toward it. There was never a right moment, and I kept choosing the next one. And by the time I understood there was never going to be a perfect moment, you were already carrying boxes to your car. Why didn't you stop me? She asks. Quietly. Genuinely. He is quiet for a moment, not avoiding it, just living inside it before he answers. I told myself you would be safer not knowing, he says. And I thought, if I told you what I actually was, that would be the thing that made you leave. I decided I would rather lose you to a misunderstanding than watch you look at the full truth of me and choose to go. She looks at him for a long time. That is the most selfish thing you have ever said to me, she says. And you have said some selfish things. Yes. You took the choice away from me. Yes. And then you stood on the pavement and put your hands in your pockets. Yes. His voice does not waver. He is not performing this. She can tell the difference because she has seen him perform, and this is not that. I have thought about that pavement every day for 8 months. I do not have a better answer than that I was a coward about the one thing that mattered most. The table holds the quiet for a moment. Paul didn't deserve what happened to him, she says. No, he didn't. Is it fixed? It is already done. All of it. Quietly. She watches him. Why? Because it was wrong, and because you told me to stay away from your life, and what I did was the exact opposite of that, and you were right. She looks at him for a long time. He lets her look. He does not manage it or try to close the space. What are you actually asking for, she says. Time, he says. Not a second chance. That framing puts the pressure in the wrong place. Just time, to show you that what I am telling you tonight is not just what I am saying, but what I am actually doing. You do not have to believe it from one dinner. I am not asking you to. A different kind of silence follows. Not a wall, more like a room where a window has just been opened. The shirt, she says. Or it was Kwame's, my cousin. He helped me build a bookshelf. Something almost becomes a smile on his face. Small, barely there. I know. You had it investigated. Within the hour. She shakes her head. And then, despite the year, despite the 8 months, despite every unanswered question and every dinner she sat through alone, something at the very corner of her mouth gives way. Just slightly. Just enough. You ask so much, she says. I know, he says. I'm working on calibrating that. She looks at the table, then back at him. Tell me about the transition, what it actually involves, how long it realistically takes, and don't soften any of it. He tells her, all of it, nothing softened. She listens the way she has always listened, fully, with real attention, asking the questions that cut straight to the center. He had almost let himself forget what it felt like to be listened to like that. Like what you are saying is worth the full weight of someone's attention. They are still there when the restaurant starts quietly closing around them, and neither of them notices for a while. Now, I told you this was not going to be fast, and it isn't. One dinner does not undo what a whole year built and 8 months of silence settled into. That is not how Deja works, and it is not how real repair works. But it is a beginning, an actual one, with real information on both sides. The second dinner is 2 weeks later. Her suggestion this time, which tells you something. She picks the place. Small restaurant in her neighborhood. No mood lighting, no performance. Just good food and enough quiet to hear each other. He is on time. She notices. She does not say anything about it, but she notices. The third dinner ends with a walk through her part of Atlanta. She shows him the coffee place and the bookstore with the handwritten shelf labels and the park she goes to on Sunday mornings when her mind needs room. He walks beside her and is quiet in a way that is different from the quiet she used to dread. Not gone quiet, not behind the wall quiet, but present quiet. Paying attention, she knows the difference now. The difference is everything. She goes to Seoul once, just once, early on, to see it, to walk through the life he is, in the process of changing, understand the shape of what he has been and what he is trying to become, and decide with real information what she is willing to be part of. It is not comfortable. Some of what she sees, she needs time to sit with after. But it is real, and she has learned the hard way that she would rather have something difficult and true than something easy and hollow. He shows up. That is the whole headline. He shows up consistently, without drama, without needing credit for it. Not perfectly. There are evenings when an old habit reaches for him, and she calls it out clean, and he takes it without making her feel like too much for noticing. He is learning what accountability looks like when it is not performed. She is learning what it feels like to trust something slowly, incrementally, with her eyes open the whole time. One evening, months into all of this, she is at his kitchen counter with her laptop open and her shoes off. He is on a call in the other room. She can hear the low register of his voice through the door, and she is not wondering what the call is about, because she knows. There are plants on his windowsill. She brought them because his apartment had nothing living in it when she first came to Seoul, and she told him that was diagnostic, and he had not argued the point. He comes out of the other room and stops in the doorway, just looking at her. She glances up. What? Nothing, he says. He goes to the kitchen, refills her coffee without being asked. She watches him do it. She thinks about the rooftop and the 6 good months and the slow drift and the dinner where she put her coat on, the pavement, the car window, 8 months in Atlanta, the restaurant both times, Seoul, the walks. She thinks about how nothing that is actually worth having arrives without first showing you exactly what you got wrong. You're staring, she says. I'm allowed to, he says. Smiles just a little at nothing in. Smiles just a little at nothing in particular. She lets him. And that's it, lovelies. The whole story. Thank you for staying until the end. If this one got you, and I really hope it did, please like and subscribe. There is so much more where this came from.